Today's event is brought to you by Engineering News Record and sponsored by Kahua. Hi, I'm Adam Palan, Special Sections Manager for ENR, coming to you from snowy New Jersey, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Thanks for joining us. Now, despite construction being the largest industry in the world, underperformance, delays, and cost overruns have been the norm. Change is here, and it demands adaptation. The shifting market landscape and emerging disruptions are fundamentally transforming construction as we know it. In this webinar, we will dive into the changing market conditions and emerging disruptions, as well as how to adapt and proactively adjust to this significant change in construction. Today, we're excited to hear from Nicholas Johnson, Chief Evangelist at Kahua, and Mohinder Singh, Senior Manager at Deloitte Transactions and Business Analytics. Now I'm going to hand things over to Nicholas Johnson to kick off today's discussion. All yours, Nicholas.
I want to tell you just a bit about Kahua. We're a leading project management information system. You might hear us referred to as a PMIS during this conversation. Specifically, we created the world's only low-code application platform built specifically for the complexity of the construction industry. An ever-growing ecosystem of partners helps our clients enhance these applications and provide services. Kahua provides purpose-built solutions specifically for contractors, their subcontractors, and construction owners of various types, from healthcare to government, K-12 and universities, transportation, utilities, and more. We offer the ability for each stakeholder on an extended project team to own and maintain all the data they create on any project without having to recreate it in another stakeholder's database. We provide unmatched security as the first cloud service in the construction industry to achieve FedRAMP authorization on our full suite of solutions. And we're also StateRAMP authorized for state and local government agencies. And last year on another ENR webinar, we introduced you to the value of asset-centric project management as a methodology, a technology evolution of itself, actually. So let me bring in Mohinder and ask you, Mohinder, tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do at Deloitte, and maybe tell us something about yourself when you're not working.
Thank you, Nicholas. Good afternoon, everyone. Coming to you from snowy New Jersey as well. My name is Mohinder Singh. I lead Deloitte's infrastructure and financial advisory practice for the Northeast. Basically, we provide services to owners of large capital projects programs across the full life cycle of the capital program. So strategic advisory around funding, where you're going to get the funds from, how you're going to secure the funds, to all the way to advisory around how are you going to structure the actual delivery of the project. So whether that means using your traditional design but build kind of delivery structure or more emerging delivery structures such as IPD, integrated project delivery, or design assist, so on and so forth. Apart from the strategic advice, go through, like I said, the full life cycle. We start providing services around how are you actually going to manage and control the project, what kind of governance structure you need to put in place, what kind of controls you need to put in place, how are you going to monitor and report against the project. And a lot of that is done through technology enablement and implementation of technology solutions. So we do a lot of technology solutioning and enablement and implementation for owners of large capital construction projects. And lastly, we provide services around the back end in the closeout phases of construction projects. If there's any litigation and claim support services, we come in. We are actually called into the court as expert witnesses as well at times. We try not to get to that stage for any of our clients, but those are some of the services that we provide across the full life cycle. Now, apart from working, I have a 17-year-old, so spending a lot of time with my kids. He's going through the college application process. I have my daughter is going to turn 13 actually day after tomorrow, so you can well imagine what that is going to look like. And as a family, we bond over travel and sports. So those are some of the things that I do outside of work.
Excellent. Were you happy with the result of the Super Bowl? That's the question of the week, of course.
Well, I don't know about I'm a Giant supporter, so I was suffering through this the whole time. But my daughter was delighted, excited with Taylor Swift and everything else that went with it.
All right, let's move on to some other questions. Actually, Mohinder, I've been hearing for some time now, some number of years actually, about computing power doubling every 1.5 to 2 years. Told that our ability to compute is doubling in that span of time. That's a pretty fast rate. But more recently, I hear the rate of innovation in our industry described as exponential. That we don't need to measure it in percentages; we need to measure it in factors. It seems to be an understood fact. I see so many people write this. I read about it so often. But now and again, I like to ask someone smarter than me for a gut check. So based on your observation, do you think these things are true? Is the rate of innovation that fast?
Oh, absolutely. The one thing that I think we can all agree on is technology is not static, right? I think technology evolved itself, and the way technology has been evolving, especially in the construction industry, it's phenomenal. It's actually exciting times, to be honest with you, for everybody who's part of the construction industry. Now, the way I look at it is when technology evolution of the construction industry started, it started more on the design side of the business. So a lot of technology evolution around BIM modeling and collaboration around design. So that's where it started, and it has since evolved throughout the supply chain of the construction program. We are seeing advancements in technology that's helping build the materials that we use for construction. There's advancement in building materials. There's advancement in building methodologies. There's a lot of, for example, modular concepts that have been around for a while now, but have actually evolved to a stage where people have started to seriously think about using them. Evolution in construction technologies around green buildings and even advanced inspections, for example, AI is now coming into play. All of this is helping our industry improve. And by improve, I think, our designs are getting better. There's less error and omission as technology evolves. Our safety record is going to improve because of the uses of technology. We can manage and monitor the projects much better. There's much better financial and cost monitoring, cash flow analysis, because of all of this, hopefully decreased fraud, waste, and abuse because of technology. So, you're absolutely right. It's not something that we hear. It's something that we see every day, and it's here to stay. It's going to keep evolving.
Well, I'm a design engineer. Many years ago, I was a design engineer, and moved from that position to a operations position where I was actually a software manager for a design company. And in that role, I bought copies of Revit 1.0. So upgraded it one time to Revit 2.0. And after that, Autodesk had acquired the company that was Revit, and the rest is kind of history. So I feel like you're right. It started on the design side. We had tons of tools, constant innovation there. And those things have bled over now into the construction. You said something I found really interesting, that there is a decrease in error and omission. Is that something documented? Can we measure that? I'm not sure that I've heard that. It's great news. It was always the bane of the existence for a design firm. We were always the one that were being pointed at when there was this conversation about errors and omissions.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, as technology advances, it's going to increase efficiencies and decrease things like errors and omissions, right? There are concepts around AI and generative AI, which will help improve the design to an extent where value engineering and issues with design are identified much in advance, as opposed to when it's under construction. So a lot of these changes, a lot of these impacts because of technology, we will start seeing, in the next 3, 4, 5 years. But things have already, put in place. They already, are in place for us to start seeing the benefits of this.
All right, you said impacts. I'm going to use a different term. What do you see as some of the most critical disruptors today and tomorrow, if I can ask that question?
Three things, broadly speaking, right? So if I have to categorize biggest disruptors in the construction industry, I would say three things. One is around workforce. So we're seeing a lot of disruption in the workforce itself. Because of COVID, there was a lot of retirements that happened. There is, over the years, because of lack of focus on STEM programs, for example, that feed the construction industry, there's a low intake of students in programs that help with the construction industry and service the construction industry. So that workforce impact, both at the skilled and unskilled labor level, is something that's a big disruptor. Not enough people helping deliver projects in the construction industry. So that's certainly one thing that's a big trend. The other big trend that we are seeing, especially in government, which is driving a lot of growth in construction industry, is the availability of funding that's coming in through the federal grants programs, and that's having an impact throughout the ecosystem of the construction industry. So these grants are funding large infrastructure projects, which are being delivered by private companies and private owners. So big impact because of funding that's coming in. Now, a combination of these two trends, so you have increased funding, more projects, and decreased labor force and decreased skilled and non-skilled workers. So essentially, you have to do more with less, is driving the third trend, which is technology. So evolution of technology, enablement of technology, digitization, digital transformation of the construction industry is the third major trend, which is basically a byproduct of all the other trends that are feeding into it. So by and large, these are the three biggest disruptors that we see in the construction industry right now, and in future, the digital transformation of the construction industry is here to stay.
That's interesting and I think spot on. I happen to be coming to you from the CURT conference, the Construction Users Roundtable. It started many years ago, and it's a collection of owners and construction professionals that come together to talk about the challenges they face. And the opening keynote spoke most often. The number one topic that they continued to address in the keynotes were workforce challenges. So, and the responsibility that all the people in the room have to help fix that. So, I think you're spot on. So, but if we acknowledge then that it's hard to keep pace with technology and that we've got these issues, what can constructors do to help themselves, whether they're owners or program managers or construction managers? What's kind of the, I don't want to say out of the box, but what's the baseline advice from Deloitte?
Yeah, the biggest thing is once you understand where the construction industry is heading, what the megatrends are, as the owner, as the constructor, what we are advising our clients is start getting ready for these things which are already set in motion. So digital transformation, as I said, is something that's here to stay, and it's going to keep evolving over the next short-term and long-term duration. So as the owner, my advice to you would be start getting ready, start getting in advance of digital transformation. Start looking at your organization and start understanding where are efficiencies that can be gained. What are some of process improvements that you can start making that will help you really transform your organization from a digital standpoint? Start looking at your infrastructure systems architecture. All the systems that are feeding your program, project delivery, the way you manage operations within your organization, start looking at the full architecture and landscape. Are there redundancies in the systems that you have? Are there systems that are not connected and integrated? Are there opportunities for you to start thinking about removing and I'll give you an example. I have a client who has 26 different systems that feed the organization to deliver their capital program. Are there systems in here that could be made redundant, and rolled into an enterprise-wide solution so that everything is housed within that system itself. And once you do that, then the last thing that I would suggest the owners is start looking at the data. You have the biggest issue that we are seeing, and I think that was a poll question where we saw a lot of good responses as well, is the biggest issue our owners are having, and we are providing services to our owners, is around the integrity of the data. How do you improve the integrity of the data? Where's the data get more seamless to access data? How can you have more confidence in the data? So as an owner, I would say start understanding your data landscape, start understanding your data governance, and then start getting ready for what the next stage is in technology evolution, and how can you improve your organization.
Okay, that's impressive. That's a lot of information. It stood out to me, your conversation about, in my words, not yours, but removing point solutions whenever possible. We have a client that we serve, a government client that we serve, where we replaced 20 commercial applications and over 20 homegrown applications. So effectively, in just that sentence, over 40 different silos of data that are now in one place. We can't be everything to everyone, but there probably are a lot of point solutions that can be replaced with an enterprise solution. So I want to get more topical, though. I want to break some of those things down. So let me ask you this, just kind of consider this. Since you acknowledge that we've got a problem with labor in the industry, and our politicians are not going to create a immigration policy that will allow us to import workers. We've had so many, not just number of people retire, but it's the experience that's retiring out of our industry. So there's not 25-year-olds leaving the industry. It's people with 25 years of service or more are leaving the industry. So we're losing a great deal of talent, even more so than the proportion of just people. Now, my opinion and my observation is that young professionals, as you said, they're not enrolling in our education programs. They're not going to university for engineering, for construction, for architecture, as once they did. Quite the opposite, actually. Those numbers are very, very low. And I think that young professionals expect and prefer to work with the latest technologies. So with all that in mind, do you think that tech can actually help us recruit and help solve the labor crisis in construction? Is that one of the things that could draw people in?
Without doubt. So if you look at our workforce and start analyzing what the workforce of the future is going to look like, I think the answer is tech. So let's try to dive a little bit deeper into this. We have, as you pointed out, we have issues with labor force or skilled and unskilled workforce leaving the infrastructure and construction industry. Where are they going? So, first question to be asked is where are these very talented people going? And the answer is in tech-enabled businesses. So for unskilled workforce, for example, there's a lot of intake in industries where manufacturing is back. So there's a lot of manufacturing that's coming back. People are gravitating towards that. There's a lot of intake of skilled and unskilled labor force within e-commerce ecosystem. And all of these industries and emerging industries and industries of the future are all heavy tech enabled.
Right.
And our generation, the new generation that's coming into the infrastructure and construction industry is, let me get this right, Generation Z, if I'm not mistaken, which was born in 1997 and between 1997 and 2009. That's what Gen Z is. If you look back, and I know you and I have some gray hair here, but if you look back, the Gen Z growing up in the 90s and 2000s are very well versed with technology. They crave for technology solutions. This is how they do the every day of their life. And if you bring them into the infrastructure and construction workspace and tell them that you have to manage this hundreds of millions of dollars of capital program or billion-dollar project on a spreadsheet, and you have to manually review the construction invoices that come in, and you're talking about thousands of pages of monthly invoices that come in, and even today, those are being reviewed manually. If you ask them to go on a job site and start inspecting completion and start putting percentage for scheduled values of work completed through visual inspection, and just going there and doing that, that's not very appealing. This workforce, the workforce of the future, craves for technology. We have to evolve. We are evolving, and technology, frankly, is a solution. That's where we will attract new talent to come in.
So you are still seeing massive organizations that manage billions of dollars in spreadsheets?
Unfortunately, yes.
I guess
they are
both still in business, huh?
Well, I'd rather those organizations and let's be objective, and those organizations have already started on this journey. They've already started to look at what can be done to improve the processes, because it's not just them, but they're for that as well. They're the people that they report to are looking for more insights, more analytics around data, more predictive reporting from these clients. So they've started working on the journey. They're some are there, some are not there, but they're all on the journey.
Okay, excellent. Well, so Deloitte has, I believe, entire groups that advise on issues around ESG or environmental, social, and governance. Are you seeing an increase in that activity? Specifically, are you seeing an increase in renewable energy being woven into your projects and your project sites?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So there's a big emphasis on carbon reduction, and how do you do that across, like I said, the full life cycle. So carbon reduction starts right at how the materials are, construction materials are built, how they're transported, how they get to the job site. How do you design your buildings, or how do you design your assets to be more environmentally friendly, less carbon emission? So, and there are incentives to be more carbon efficient. There are incentives to be more sustainable. These incentives are not just driven through the federal government, for example. The grants that are coming in through the Infrastructure Jobs Act and Inflation Reduction Acts, for example, a lot of these grants are tied to how you perform against some of these measures, and that's driving the whole emphasis to be more environmentally friendly. We are seeing the usage of alternative energy sources, for example, and how the construction industry can benefit from that. Whether using alternate energy sources such as hydrogen or wind or solar power to then enable fleet transformations. This is again a big area of focus for us that we are seeing in the market, especially in the construction industry. There's a push towards creating infrastructure so that our owners can start transitioning to EV and AV fleets. Now, how do we enable that, and how do we make sure there's enough sustainable energy out there to make sure that their fleets, once transition, are able to function as per their requirements?
So you said a lot about carbon. We've created with one of our clients, the General Services Administration, came to us and requested that we create an app specifically to help them track embedded carbon on their projects. So the staff of the GSA worked with one of our partner companies, and they've created an app that helps track all embedded carbon on their projects. I don't know of other ways in the industry. How are other organizations able to track their carbon footprint during design and construction, or is it just something that up until now people have had to take a stab at after the project's complete?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from a very simplistic standpoint, right, it is basically getting the right data and reporting against the data. So whether that data is for carbon emissions and how you're performing against the carbon emission, and really understanding where that data is going to come from, and then reporting against that data. So if you break it down to that simple level, then it's very easy to really understand how you can track against carbon emission as an organization. The other thing that we've started to see, and this is something that's evolving, is blockchain technology. So using blockchain, it offers decentralized and transparent platform for tracking carbon emissions throughout the construction supply chain. So we started to see that a little bit as a concept. I think that's going to start evolving in the next few years, and there's going to be a lot of emphasis around, just because our clients, our owners are more environmentally sensitive, it's not just something that's being pushed down their throat. They want this planet to be sustainable for the future generations. So you'll start seeing a lot of that happening in the next few years.
Well, again, those young workers that we want to bring into this industry, it's very important to them, probably, again, more so than for us gray-haired folks. So I think it's an important issue. We've got this platform. Kahua is a platform that allows clients like the GSA to create apps specifically for these kind of things. And I think that's going to be part of our answer for these problems, is to help people create their own solutions, innovate on their own, on their own dime, on their own time, and be able to create the solutions that meet their specific needs. So a follow-up to that, then another client example. What about the social part of ESG? We've got a partner and a client that needed an app to track minority participation at every level across an entire portfolio. I'm curious if you think this will become more important as time goes on, or less important in the next decade.
Well, I think it's going to become even more important, and rightly so. As an industry, we have had issues with community involvement, where large capital projects, large infrastructure projects, we have to go through a whole community board process, and then making the local community, be involved in that. And there's, certain give and take to get that support, and that is reflected in the design of the construction projects. I think now it's going to a whole different level. To how do we make sure that our disadvantaged communities really get the benefit from these capital projects, from these infrastructure projects, and how do we measure against it whether or not it has really made a true impact to that local community? I come back to the push that the federal government, for example, spurred in this space through the Infrastructure Jobs Act. There's a provision within these acts for what we call Justice 40 or J40 reporting. Now, Justice 40 reporting is basically making sure that every infrastructure project that is being planned has a social impact to it. It is helping uplift the local community where the infrastructure project is being planned and delivered. Now, how do you measure success against that factor? How do you measure that the actual impact has sustained and there has been upliftment? So there's a lot of ways to measure it. For example, you can see the local area where the infrastructure project was pre-construction and post-construction. Looking at the housing market, has the price of the housing gone up? That basically means that overall there's been a good economic impact in that local area. You can also track the amount of business activity that has flowed in since the inception of the project. So are more businesses coming in? Are there more employment opportunities within that local region? So all of these things go into tracking the impact of the social impact of infrastructure projects. And our opinion has always been, and my personal opinion certainly is, our industry, the construction industry, the infrastructure industry, is an engine of growth for uplifting our communities, depressed communities, because we the amount of employment that we generate, the amount of impact that we have through one construction and infrastructure project, none of the other industries can match that.
Does Deloitte offer a service of actually going in and trying to measure those things? Because you gave a simple and understandable answer, but I think that a project, even a mega project, is not the only factor that influences, the resurgence of a neighborhood. I wrote a piece last year about my experiences in the neighborhood of Washington D.C., where the Nationals put their ballpark. I wanted to avoid staying there. I had to go to a conference at the ballpark, and I wanted to avoid staying there because my memory from 12 years earlier was that this was not a good neighborhood for me to stay in. I went to the conference. I stayed directly across the street. I was incredibly impressed at the renaissance that this neighborhood had. It's a wonderful place to visit now. But it wasn't the only project. It was a massive project, no doubt. But the Navy Yards had done, their own kind of cleanup effort. And so does Deloitte have the ability to go in and help an organization, perhaps a local government, see the impact of where they spent the dollars? I imagine that's one of the services you guys would provide.
Yes, we do. And without naming, a client, I can tell you that we have a number of federal clients and some state and local clients where we're providing these services. So, we've developed these dashboards, we've developed these KPIs that really help measure the true success of a project from a social impact standpoint. And how do you measure against that? Like I mentioned before. So we provide these services to a number of our clients across all the I wouldn't say all 50 states, but a majority of the states, especially the ones that are receiving federal funding. And even Kahua has created an app in this as well, and is now being delivered to government customer, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
That is correct. That's correct. So yeah, we offer both the ability to track the colors of money. It's been very important with the IIJA. That money comes with lots of strings, and our owner clients, our government organization clients, they have to be able to be accountable for that money. So we've built in the ability for them to track that down to the last nickel, multiple buckets of money. It's very important for an owner, maybe perhaps different for a general contractor who generally has one bucket of money, and a budget's a budget. You have money or you don't. For an owner, it's so much more complicated, especially today with this influx of dollars from the federal government from 3 major acts that have been passed. I want to move forward, and I want to ask you probably, Mohinder, the largest question of the day. I think it's the question of the decade, perhaps. Where does AI fit into all this? You've mentioned it several times, but just generally, what construction owners and construction managers and program managers, what do they need to be thinking about AI, in the construction space? How's it going to affect us? What's the big picture look at that?
Oh, the $1 million question.
It's a $1 trillion question. So.
Yeah, maybe so. So there's AI is here. Gen AI is here, and it's here to stay. There's a lot of concepts that are being thrown around, and I'll be honest with you. There's more concepts than actual use cases that are out there in the industry. We are seeing some genuine use cases that are now being put into practice. For example, intelligent inspections. How do you use the drone technology, for example, to do inspections? Now, whether these are condition assessment inspections or inspections against the progress of capital project. So instead of doing a lot of these manual inspections, now you have the technology in place that will help you perform these inspections in a much smoother fashion, less time, with a much more reliable data set, and a data set that is organized in such a way that you can then do all kinds of slicing and dicing of the data to get a lot of analytics from that data. So that's a use case that's here to stay, and it's evolving. Some of the AI use cases were in the construction industry, but now are maturing. As an example, robotic process automation. RPAs have been around for a while, but now we are seeing use cases within construction where you can actually, and this is one of the examples that I brought previously in this conversation around reviewing these massive amounts of pages of invoices that flow on a monthly basis. Now, RPAs help you sift through those if they are organized and brought in a technology platform where you can actually go through and RPA, the robotic process automation, will go through the invoice and take a look at where there are discrepancies. For example, the rates don't line up with what the contractual rates may be or the prevailing wages may be. The hours don't align with how the hours should be from a 8-hour, 10-hour workday to 40-hour work week and overtime hours and so on and so forth. So these are some examples of use cases that have been around but are now maturing in the construction industry. We are seeing a lot of other concepts. Predictive maintenance, I think, is the next evolution in construction. So once the asset is turned over, what do you do with the data that's coming through all the sensors that you may have put in? So AI is using the sensors that are being put in into the design and the construction of the assets, and using that information, that data that's going to flow out to really understand where predictive maintenance needs to happen and what do we do. We have smart buildings now that's generating all kinds of data through sensors. We have smart bridges and tunnels, for example, that are generating all kinds of data. So all of this data, and data coming through sensors for critical building assets or critical infrastructure assets. So all of this data is helping the industry really understand where your critical failures may be coming and how do you address that well in advance so that your infrastructure asset is performing at the optimal level that you want it to perform. So, like I said, there's a lot of concepts out there and very exciting concepts, and a lot of fewer actual use cases that are coming through. But AI is evolving; it's here to stay, and as an industry, I think we should be very, very excited with what's happening from an AI standpoint.
So you mentioned, I think I understand AI kind of in two ways. One is, all of our first exposure to AI is ChatGPT, right? We all got to go in and play around and have it write something for us, write a poem or a story or an article. And it was fascinating. We could give it some instructions and it creates something for us. And I would say that's direct exposure. You described a lot of ways where I believe that AI is embedded in someone else, in some other tool that I already used, or perhaps that I bought because of AI. So I see it as, direct exposure and embedded exposure. Software companies like Kahua would have to embed some technology. Do you see a lot of companies, a lot of construction organizations that have some direct AI, that they've built AI into their own systems, or is our exposure today simply through other tools, commercial tools?
Well, it's so right now it's through other tools, other commercial tools. There's, like I said, there's a lot that's happening in AI space where owners can start developing these and start embedding these, but there's it's still maturing. It's not there as yet. Let me actually ask you a question. Will based on this discussion, will Kahua use embedded AI tools? And if they do, how does that impact your FedRAMP compliance?
All right. Well, I've got two problems with your questions, Mohinder. First, I work for a software company, and we really don't like to talk about futures because somehow they always come across as firm commitments. So let me say that I'm nervous talking about anything that would happen in the future. Second is that this technically is probably way above my pay grade. But I do hang around with a lot of really smart people, and sometimes I pick up a nugget or two. So let me offer you this. I know that most companies in our space, in the project management space, are adopting open AI models. Now, that will be an issue for anyone committed to the security standards and protocols that we're committed to. There are other AI models. Comes to mind Meta's Llama model, and it can be hosted locally. So I think that will be an important consideration for a vendor like us that wants to maintain FedRAMP authorization. We're definitely committed to FedRAMP and to StateRAMP and all the other security measures that that make our customers sleep well at night. So without telling you, will we use AI? Absolutely, we will use AI. How we will use it, I'm not qualified to say. That there are ways that are more secure and less secure, and I am sure that we will use the most secure methodology. So perhaps the more important question, though, is when it comes to AI is what does AI consume? It's all about the data that we talked about earlier. How does Deloitte advise your clients about the data related to AI?
Yeah, so there's a lot of risk involved with data that's feeding your AI models, right? So AI is all about the data that's coming in and the output from that data, especially generative AI, which then uses that data analysis and analytics to advance your processes or optimize them. The issue with data is, first of all, where's the data coming from? And what's the confidence level in the data itself that's feeding the AI model? So garbage in, garbage out, right? So if your data is not good enough, then you really are not getting any benefit through AI because the models are unreliable and frankly, they're throwing out models which are inaccurate because the accuracy of your data itself is not correct. The other thing that we are seeing as a concern with a lot of our clients is around protecting the data. So there's a lot of data that is personal identified information. There's a lot of data that's very near and dear to the organization that they don't want this kind of data to go out where it can provide benefit to their competition. So how do you protect that data? What are some of the protections that need to be built in? There's obviously cybersecurity concerns. We've seen a lot of our owners go through ransomware issues. We've seen hacking systems and leading up to issues with how do you secure your data. So we're seeing a lot of risk on data itself, where it's coming from, how do you protect it, and the third biggest issue that our clients are encountering is these AI models use massive amounts of data, and the whole cycle time and how long it takes for the analysis to come through and be improved. That cycle time, again, depending on your data quantity, size, and integrity, is a problem. So if you cannot provide that analysis in a amount of time that makes your organization really helpful, then what's the point of doing all these and generating all these models?
Yeah, I'm always reminded when I have this conversation about data of this, what's become one of my favorite quotes from Clive Humby, a British mathematician. He's the one that we all heard. We've probably all heard the expression, data is the new oil. I think he said that in 2009. And when I heard it, gosh, that makes sense. Data is really valuable. It's what I heard. And then one day someone told me the rest of the quote and how Humby goes on to explain that it's like oil in that if you can refine it, it's worth an incredible amount. And if you can't refine it, it just creates a big mess. So data without the ability to sift through it, make it better and refine it is really not very valuable. And if you can refine it, and it is incredibly valuable. To your point, it's worth the security that we need to wrap around it. Then the other thing that comes to mind, I think one of the things I'm hearing you say is that the data that each of your clients has that is unique to them, their data, is probably the most important asset in this conversation about AI, because we'll all have access to the same kind of AI models. Whatever tool you use, any of your clients can have access to those, and any of your clients can have access to data that's in the public domain, but only your clients have access to your clients' data. So taking care of it first is probably the most important thing they can do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And like I said, there's a lot of emphasis on securing that data. Our clients are looking at solutions and technologies that, for example, some of our federal clients require FedRAMP certification. They want the technology solutions that they're using to be FedRAMP certified, so that they have that confidence in the security of their data, so that it is not available in hands of bad actors. So that's definitely something that we're seeing a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.